In the heart of Los Angeles, hidden away in a mansion of secrets, a bizarre tale of love, murder, and hidden passions unfolded. Meet Dolly Oesterreich, a woman trapped in a loveless marriage with her wealthy but uncivilized husband, Fred. Fueled by her unmet desires, Dolly embarked on a shocking affair with her repairman that would change her life forever. The affair grew so strong that she ended up convincing her new lover to live in the attic, remaining hidden at all times. Dolly's story begins in the gritty textile factories of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where she was just a young girl working long hours. Little did she know, fate had a different plan for her. Dolly Oesterreich, who chose to go by the name Dolly, was born in 1880 to German immigrant parents after arriving in the United States. She grew up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and lived in a community of fellow German immigrants. She grew up poor, and at the age of 12 years, she had to find a job. She found herself working at a textile factory which was owned by Fred Oesterreich. Fred Oesterreich was born on December 8, 1877 in Chicago. He was son to Wilhelm Oesterreich and Johanna Kruger Oesterreich. He was also a German immigrant and grew up with an elder sister, Anna Oesterreich-Krutz, and a younger brother, John Louis Oesterreich. Later, he went on to become a wealthy textile manufacturer, mainly dealing with kitchen aprons by the early age of 17 years, and also hired other immigrants. While Dolly Oesterreich Dolly was a very lovely, warm, social girl and made friends easily. She immediately caught the attention of Fred, and the two started dating, although she was very young at the time. She was quite popular among the factory workers due to her personality and peaceful nature. They didn't get married until she came of age a few years later in the year 1897. In 1900, the pair gave birth to a son, Raymond Harold. Nevertheless, their happiness was short-lived as he passed away at the age of 9 in 1910. Although the two were famous members of their community, the defect in Fred and Dolly's marriage began to emerge as Fred followed a hard-living mentality and drank a bit too much, while on the other hand, Dolly was allegedly unsatisfied with their marital life due to Fred's long hours at work. She was a woman who had needs, and those needs weren't met. Fred was either always coming home late, always busy, or was too drunk to get it up. Furthermore, Dolly felt that he just wasn't good in the bedroom to begin with. As per information, Dolly was reportedly associated with multiple lovers and used to invite them over to satisfy her during the daytime when Fred was out working in the factory. Things got much more extreme after Dolly met Otto Sandhuber, who was by then 17 years old and working at Fred's textile business as well. When Dolly's sewing machine broke, she informed Fred and asked him to send someone out to repair it. Already Dolly had an idea who Otto was, and she was secretly hoping that he would be the one Fred would send. She had a plan already to seduce him. When Otto knocked on the door, Dolly answered it, and he immediately came inside and got down to business, thus beginning a very long love affair. When the relationship began, they would spend all their time together going to hotels. Nevertheless, Dolly began feeling worried, as hotels cost a lot of money and it was becoming expensive. Nearly all the money was Fred's, and Dolly didn't want him to notice his money missing and start looking into the issue. Because of being afraid of Fred finding out, she decided that it could be better to just have Otto come over and sleep together in her bed. Nevertheless, a while later, as the affair escalated, her neighbors started noticing and questioned her who that mystery man was. Dolly would go on and tell them that he was just another wanderer stepbrother, which meant that he was homeless and had no job or food or even proper shelter. Dolly came up with another amazing idea since she didn't want anyone going around asking any more questions and bringing it up to Fred, which was making her feel even more worried. The idea was that she asked Otto if he would be okay with quitting his job and start living in her attic. During the time when Fred was at work, they could have fun together, and then he could go back into the attic when Fred was home. Otto also thought that was a good idea, as he didn't have to work and pay bills, and he didn't have to worry about buying food because Dolly would provide and get to be intimate with her all day, every day. What else could a 17-year-old ask for? Everything was provided for, so during the day he would make love to Dolly, and at night he would focus on his writing. Otto wanted to become a pulp fiction writer and have his stories published one day. Dolly would bring him books every day from the library, and also gave him a bed, a desk that he could write on, and food every day. Since Otto didn't have friends or family, no one noticed his absence, and that went on for 5 years. After several years of living together in a Milwaukee mansion, Fred allegedly started to hear strange noises from the attic. He claimed that his cigars would disappear and that he saw some shadow passing right outside his bedroom door at night. He would hear footsteps above his bed, and food in the house disappeared faster than it couldn't have for only 2 people living there. He was really confused, not sure if someone was sneaking around, if there were ghosts in their home, or if he was going crazy. He brought up that issue with Dolly many times. However, Dolly dismissed them as her husband seemingly imagining things, and that she had no idea what he was talking about, and that he wasn't making sense and should go and see a doctor. Fred went to see a doctor, and the doctor told him he couldn't find anything wrong with him. In 1917, Fred officially told Dolly they'd be moving out of Milwaukee and going to Los Angeles, California, and it wasn't up for debate. They went down to Los Angeles to look for homes, but Dolly pronounced one non-adjustable condition for her. She told Fred that there must be an attic in their new house. It was hard to find one with an attic in Los Angeles, but Dolly ended up getting lucky and found one. They bought the home and went back to Milwaukee to pack, but Dolly made sure that Otto went to the new home before them so that he had enough time to get settled before Dolly and Fred arrived. Throughout the following several months, Otto went on to do what he always did, romantically involved with Dolly by day and a pulp fiction writer by night. He managed to publish some of his stories, and he made money from them and assisted Dolly with buying food. Nevertheless, Fred went on getting more and more worried because all the noises and issues had followed him from his previous home to the new one in Los Angeles. He was now convinced that he was going insane. Fred continued to be manipulated by Dolly, and he began getting worried and stressed, which resulted in quarrels between the couples more often. On August 22, 1922, the couple had their biggest argument ever. It was so loud that Otto could hear everything from the attic. He sensed that Dolly was in danger and wanted to go down there to safeguard the love of his life. Otto went down a small opening that led into their bedroom closet, where he found 2 of Fred's .25 caliber pistols. He picked one of the guns and went through the kitchen to confront Fred, and immediately they saw each other. Everything began to make sense. Fred discovered that the man who used to work for him has been living in his attic for the last 10 years, and that he had been supporting him the entire time. He became extremely angry, and the two ended up in a real fight when the gun went off. The first bullet hit the ceiling, and the following 3 hit Fred straight into his chest, killing him on the spot. Dolly and Otto were scared, and Otto resolved to lock her inside the closet, which locks from outside. That could work as a cover-up, since she clearly couldn't kill someone if she had been locked inside a closet. Otto then went around the house taking a few expensive items, inclusive of Fred's diamond watch that he was wearing. He then went upstairs to hide since he knew that neighbors would call the police, given that there were gunshots and all the screaming Dolly did. When the police arrived, they found Fred's lifeless body on the floor and Dolly unconscious inside the closet. When the police inquired what had happened, Dolly said they were robbed, they killed Fred, and locked her inside the closet. The police were suspicious about her story, but because they didn't have any proof to stand against her story, they had to let her go, and they were both free. After Fred's death, Dolly purchased a new home with the money she got. That home had an attic too. Life continued as usual. Otto would mess around with Dolly during the day and write during the night. It wasn't clear as to why Otto would still want to stick to the same arrangement given that Fred was not around and they no longer had to sneak around, but Dolly's reason was quite clear. She had met another man by the name Herman Shapiro. Herman was a successful businessman, and the two liked each other and became friendly at once. Dolly even gave Herman a gift early in their relationship, which was a diamond watch. Aware of the situation, he asked her, "Isn't this the watch that was stolen from your late husband?" She then informed him that she had indeed found it somewhere in the house, and he believed her. Again, because of the long hours Herman was working, Dolly became unsatisfied, even with Otto in the attic. She went ahead and got another successful man to have on the side by the name of Roy Klum. She started paying less attention to Otto. Roy was a successful lawyer and an aspiring actor. Dolly didn't want something suspicious around in case the police showed up again. She knew the guns were still in her home, so she talked to Roy and informed him that she still had one of Fred's .25 caliber pistols and that it looked very much the same as the one used to murder Fred. She asked if he'd be capable of getting rid of it for her. He agreed to dispose of the gun and didn't question it at all. He went ahead and threw it in the La Brea tar pits. Although she still had one of the other guns, Dolly couldn't ask Roy to dispose of another gun, as it could make her look very suspicious. So she went to one of her neighbors and told him the same story as she had told Roy, and requested if he could dispose of the gun for her as well. He accepted it and buried it deep in his backyard. Dolly had now acquired 3 men to satisfy her needs. They were Otto, Roy, and Herman. Nevertheless, a few years later, Dolly wanted to end things with Roy, and he became extremely angry. Because of his anger, he decided to go to the police and inform them about the gun Dolly requested him to dispose of and where exactly it was. The police went and retrieved the gun, went to Dolly's home, and arrested her. The neighbor who had also disposed of the other gun saw her arrested, and since he didn't want any ties to whatever was going on, he told the police about disposing of the gun for Dolly in his backyard, and the officers retrieved it as well. When Dolly was in jail waiting for her trial, Herman, her main man, came to visit her. She was afraid, bearing in mind that Otto was still in the attic and he didn't know what was going on and wasn't eating anything. She informed Herman about her stepbrother living in her attic and asked him if he could go over there and give him some food. Dolly told Herman that all he had to do was knock on the ceiling in her bedroom closet, and Otto would come out. Herman agreed to give him some food and didn't question anything in her story. When Otto came down, he for some reason felt forced to tell Herman everything he'd been doing with Dolly, and that he was sleeping with her and doing it very frequently. Herman was agitated and threw Otto out of the house and told him to never return. Herman went to bail Dolly out of jail, and bearing in mind the fact that the guns were destroyed from being buried for so long, they couldn't find any proof on the guns linking them to Dolly or if those were the guns used in the murder, so their charges against her were dropped, meaning she was acquitted for the second time. When Dolly was released from jail, Herman resolved to move in with her, although he came to find out that she was cheating on him with her apparent stepbrother, who was strangely living in her attic. Herman and Dolly lived together for the next 7 years, and Dolly was back again to her old ways of cheating, but this time, not with Otto. Since Otto was thrown out, Dolly hadn't heard from him. One day, Herman returned home and found Dolly with a man. Extremely angered, he broke things and went to the police station and gave every single piece of evidence he had been gathering over the years that confirmed Dolly and Otto murdered Fred. He told the police that he believed Otto was the one who locked Dolly in the closet, stole the items, inclusive of the watch she gave him as a gift, and hid in the attic to make it look like a staged robbery. After the report, Dolly was once again arrested. Otto had moved to Canada, changed his name, and got married. It took a year to locate him, and he then moved back to Los Angeles where he was arrested, and immediately Otto confessed everything. He told the detectives all about his time in Dolly's attic, the love affair, how the murder of Fred happened, and what transpired after all that. His defense lawyer told the court that Dolly had locked him since he was 17 years old and enslaved him. He had the mind of an 8-year-old, and that he did not live a normal life. His lawyer attempted to prove that he was not guilty due to the reason of mental disorder. Nevertheless, he was still found guilty of manslaughter. However, he still couldn't be punished, bearing in mind that 1 year before he was sentenced, the statute of limitations on manslaughter had expired and Otto walked out scot-free. In the course of Dolly's trial, she couldn't be sentenced to manslaughter because they knew the statute of limitations expired. Instead, they resolved to charge her with conspiracy. Nevertheless, her trial had a deadlocked jury, so Dolly walked scot-free again. Both Dolly and Otto got away with the murder 3 times. Dolly remained in Los Angeles and remarried. There are no records on what happened to Otto, and still, there is no information about whether Dolly continued with the many love affairs or not. She passed away in 1961 at the age of 80 years old. If you found this video compelling, leave a like, and your thoughts in the comments. Be sure to subscribe and check out our other videos.